Hey there, welcome to Broadcast to Post. I'm Jeff Sengfield, CTO at Keycode Media. This is the show where we interview leaders and experts in the AV, broadcast, and post-production spaces. We're giving you the inside tips to grow your media workflows and business today. It's a cloudy day today. Post-production teams are varied: dailies, editors, colorists, producers, showrunners. We have a problem. Post teams have been uprooted, decentralized from the facility, and the expectation is that they need to collaborate remotely with the same or better results that they had when they were all in the same office suite. And we know how those turned out. Remote AEs need to see dailies coming in, tag metadata, organize timelines. Remote editors have to access that library of files and their media and begin the creative process. Remote producers and showrunners have to review and approve, providing comments on the timeline for notes to be addressed immediately. Remote colorists, they've got to add that high-res conform and create the final lock timeline. But remember, it's only engineering at the facility. Everyone else is zoomed in. So the big challenge with cloud is that we're dealing with media. Unlike sharing a Word document, media files are much, much larger. They're going to take up a lot of space and bandwidth. It's challenging and time-consuming for that media to be uploaded to the cloud. It takes a lot of time to get that media downloaded from the cloud. And successful playback from the cloud is heavily dependent on the file type and size. You can also incur massive costs from the download. Egress, for those who are taking notes, from the cloud. And are you egressing that same data over and over? Incurring the same costs. Luckily, we've got some smart folks on the program today with some solutions to all of this. Carl Soule from Adobe, Michael Cioni from Adobe and Frame.io, Dave Leopold from LucidLink, and me from Keycode Media. We've all been laser focused on these challenges and finding new products, methods, and integrating new solutions that solve the issues for collaborative teams, whether it's 5 people or 500. Before we get to our live panel discussion, getting into the best real-world examples of a full cloud workflow that are available today, we're going to spend the first section demonstrating an example camera-to-cloud workflow featuring Adobe through Frame.io and LucidLink. In our opinion, these are the top companies solving the challenges of the cloud. Keycode Media, we've got these experienced engineers on staff that can walk you through the right solution and optimize the cloud workflow that's going to function for your creative team. We'll be right back with our workflow and then into the panel.
Attention passengers, this is your captain speaking. Our flight time today will be approximately 10 hours from pre-production to your final destination, a first cut. Feel free to turn your laptop or mobile device on so you can track our progress with Frame.io Camera to Cloud. We hope you enjoy your flight.
Drop it.
Roll camera. Action.
Drop it.
All right, cut.
Oh, drop it. Thank you so much, Jeff. So excited to be here and excited to demonstrate some new technology that I'm exceptionally excited about seeing how it transitions across the internet here. So you can see what Carl and I and Keycode and LucidLink and Adobe and Frame.io are going to do together. And what we've been building here for about a couple of years, 2.5 years, we've been building this way to be able to shoot and edit, conform all through cloud automation. And that's really the name of the game, is making this automated. We actually announced Camera to Cloud a little over a year ago in February. It was released March 31st, and it's about to have its 1-month birthday at the recording of this particular webinar. And we had an update in November, and we are so excited to see you all in NAB coming up soon. Now, the reason this is so important is something that we can all wrap our heads around. Why is Camera to Cloud going to be what I would call a technological certainty? Well, today, most people use hard drives to move their assets, but in the future, a decade from now, we won't have hard drives. Cameras won't even have removable media cards. They'll just have internal caches. So what we're doing to bridge that gap is an opportunity for everybody to develop, both creatively and as a manufacturer. Today, we're using external proxies to upload, but by 2026, we'll have internal proxies. Cameras will record their own proxies to the cloud. By 2028, original camera files will be possible because global bandwidth will increase enough that raw files will be able to transmit it from cards, probably to near field, near Earth orbit satellites. And then by the end of the decade, there'll be no more removable media, and you'll just get the media there via some internet interface. Now, what that means is your workflow is going to change. Today, your workflow probably looks something like this. You have picture and sound. You have to download and ship that media. It goes to a lab, or maybe you are your own lab preparing the media. Then it goes to editorial and archive. What Camera to Cloud does is it skips download and shipping and goes to the lab, or in some cases, it skips download, shipping, and lab and goes right to the editor. This is crucial because what we want to do is we want to connect editorial and cameras to each other. That's this frictionless world that we've all needed, whether or not we've recognized it or not. But for over a century, we've always delayed the editorial process. And since digital came online, we've been trying to compress the amount of time it takes to shoot and edit, but we never got there. And the cloud is the way to actually make it real. What this means is every single market segment, from Oscar winners to influencers, are going to be acquiring their assets in the cloud. They will all be born in the cloud. We're doing that with a program that we've developed called C2C Connections, which is a free API for both embedded systems or hardware systems like these partners and software systems. Hardware systems use the API to publish from assets in their hardware right to the Frame.io cloud, push to Adobe, and you can do it with software. It could be software native applications like Colorfront or Pomfret, or iOS tools like Zoelog or Magic Viewfinder. These are ways that we can connect everyone together. And so the crew members on the set do the job they've always done. Sound mixers record, camera operators record, ACs do their documentation. And then what happens is in the background, it all gets published automatically to centralized source. At the time of this recording, these are the cameras we support out of the box. So in the professional space, we're doing really well. But at NAB in April 2022, this will dramatically expand to include a huge amount of cameras in the future. So stay tuned for that. But in order to make this work, we want to demonstrate it. And Carl and I are going to be working together. We are not in the same place. And so this is actually going to be demonstrating cloud transmission. To make things even more difficult, I am in a hotel room. Don't judge the decor. And I am transmitting everything over an LTE hotspot because I don't really have hotel internet that's reliable enough. So I have a hotspot, which is right there sitting on the windowsill right behind me. So I'm going to switch over and show my Frame.io account. This is my Frame.io account. I'm doing this in Safari, and you can see a calendar view here that's really neat. And what I'm going to do is the camera that I'm using on Zoom right now is a red helium connected to a Teradek Cube, which is our video encoder. I have a separate system audio microphone here, which is a Sound Devices 888. Both of these are independently shooting assets, 888 to Frame.io, Teradek Cube to Frame.io. So I'm going to hit record. So this is Michael in that Burbank hotel. We are going to do something really cool for everyone to see. And we've got a new technology with LucidLink and Adobe and Camera to Cloud that's really going to knock your socks off. All right, so now I'm going to cut that take. And as soon as I hit cut, you see Frame.io automatically starts creating a date folder. Today is March 17th. So inside of that, it actually created two directories. It's separated audio and video. If I look at my audio file, it knows this was an 888, and inside that 888, I already have an asset. This is an uncompressed WAV file. So if I click on that WAV file, I can see the metadata of that asset. I can recognize that this is an uncompressed linear broadcast PCM wave and play it back. So this is Michael in that Burbank hotel. We are going to do something. So you remember I said that there. So we have that audio file. We also have our video file. Our video asset is labeled ACAM. So I can see that I have an ACAM asset here. Important thing about this is since I'm sending this to the cloud to Carl, we need to make sure that this asset is relinkable. So the time code here says 11:18. This is the moment I shot it. You can see the metadata here. The file name actually represents the original clip name. So this has the red raw file clip name and the original red frames per second and time code. So we can relink this. Frame.io also has a custom action option that's an option for people, and it's called AV Sync. And what this does is it actually merges the picture and sound together. And now I've created a new title asset or a new hero asset that is muxing picture and sound together. So this is Michael in that Burbank hotel. We are going to do something really cool for everyone to see. So this is honestly the only cloud automation, picture, sound, and automated syncing solution in the world. There is no other technology that can take picture and sound from different manufacturers, sync them together. I also have my phone that I can show you with some of those other attributes that is really neat to show how this camera to cloud connections works. This is my phone right here. And in the bottom left, you see this app called ZoeLog. If I open up ZoeLog, I can see this is an actual camera report. So camera assistants can go through their camera reports. And if you see the share button at the bottom, I see there's a Frame.io integration. Watch what happens when I hit send. From my phone, it will actually generate a new folder category. So you can see Frame.io updated, and it generated a new camera reports directory, and it understands that this is a camera reports directory. It says Chioni ZoeLog, and inside of that, now I have an RTF, a CSV, and even a PDF of all the assets automatically centralizing themselves together. If I go back to this directory, I can go back to my phone, and I can even look at another tool called Magic Viewfinder. So this is going to be a little bit meta, but I see Jeff right here. I'm going to zoom in. This is a viewfinder app. There they are. I'm going to take a still. And, you know, we use viewfinder apps for different types of tool sets, location, hair and makeup, and scouts and things like that, DP framing. And there you can see a new directory called stills was generated. And inside stills, it recognizes this is Michael's viewfinder app. And so if I had 10 people, it would generate 10 different directories with everybody's names on it. And inside of that, I know it's a little bit meta, but here is our picture of us that we just captured. And I have the metadata of the viewfinder app that I was referencing. So everybody is seeing that together. If I look at this tab here called C2C Connections, you can actually see a little dashboard of all the devices connected to my project. So as I add devices, if I was going to add someone else, I could click and say add new device, and it would say, give me a 6-digit code. The device that you want to add will produce a 6-digit code that is given via Frame.io in the cloud. You type that in, and then you get a green light when that device is on. So you can see this is my sound recorder, this is my ZoeLog, this is Magic Viewfinder and ACAM. And I even have another partner, Rob Laughlin. He's in my project, but he's offline right now. So his dot is great. So we have this ability to see everything coming together automatically. And before I turn it over to Carl, I want to mention one more thing. Everything in this asset that you see right here in this directory didn't exist when I started yakking 11 minutes ago, right? Like this was just an empty directory. In fact, there wasn't even a date for 3/17. We didn't even have this date, and everything was generated automatically. And you saw it because all I did was hit record and publish a few assets as if I was the DP or camera assistant or sound mixer, and Frame.io automates everything else. The future of this workflow, this process that we're going to get to be completely cloud-centric means that every single electronic asset in the world will be born in the cloud. And in order to interact with that, centralization is key. Frame.io's C2C Connections is a tool that everyone can leverage that allows us to centralize everything together. Once we centralize all the products into one place, Then we can start parsing that metadata, mixing and muxing that metadata, sorting and sharing that metadata. And that's where this gets really exciting. So to take us to the next step, I'm going to toss it over to Carl, who's able to be in my Frame.io project and receive the assets from my hotel room that I've already delivered.
All right, thank you, Michael. So let me very quickly share my screen here. And what I am doing here is I am going to use Adobe Premiere Pro, and I've got the Frame.io panel running. Now, I'm going to be editing. I'm working inside of what's called an Adobe production. This is a collaborative environment where multiple editors can be working together on different elements of the same set of assets, the same pieces. Everybody has their project. We use project locking to keep everybody in and out of their various bits and pieces. Now, you'll notice down in the corner here, I've got the Frame.io panel open, and I'm actually inside the same exact project that Michael was just working on. In fact, I've gone into the video ACAM folder here, and I can see Michael's clip right here. I could play this back and start working with it. But what I need to do is I need to get it in this timeline. I'm currently working on a little promo piece, and what Michael said, I need to be able to edit that down and drop it into this sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and use Frame.io here, and I'm going to choose to import this file. Now, when I do this, I get a choice of what resolution file I want to work with. Everything from the H.264 file. If I need something smaller, I can actually go in and use any of these proxy files. I'm going to go ahead and choose the full resolution file. And at this point, I need to get a local copy of this onto my machine. Well, sort of. What we're doing today is we're going to use another technology called LucidLink. And LucidLink is cloud storage that looks and feels like it's local in a lot of respects. So what I'm going to do here, I'm currently looking at my MacBook Pro, and you can see I've got an external hard drive connected. I've got my internal drive, and then I've got this drive here with the LucidLink logo. As far as the Mac is concerned, it thinks of this just as a local NAS, but in reality, this is leveraging cloud storage. This is actually an Amazon AWS instance found on the East Coast in Northern Virginia. But when I double click on this, this looks like a traditional share. I can go into my Carl Media folder. Here I've got my camera to cloud directory, and this is where I'm going to choose to put this file. And by doing this, the beauty of doing this is I'm really not bringing this file down locally. I'm actually going cloud to cloud, and you see how quickly that file was able to go from the Frame cloud over into the Lucid cloud. Now I can start to work further with this. I've actually already got the audio as a separate file that I've downloaded, and I'm going to go through this synchronization process, and then I'm going to get this in here. And for right now, though, I want to turn things over to David Leopold from LucidLink to explain more about that technology.
Thanks, Carl. The fastest way to let you know what we are is our technology transforms the cloud into a local file system. So as Carl was saying, we mount as though we are a local or attached drive, like a USB drive. So we look like a USB drive, we are scalable like the cloud, and we're shareable like a NAS. So basically, we're asking you to rethink everything you know about the cloud and the way that it works. We operate on a completely new protocol. So just a few quick things about LucidLink. We're extremely easy to use. We operate on Mac, Windows, and Linux. That means that Mac users don't need to worry about Windows shortcuts and keystrokes. Windows users don't need to worry about repathing. Everything just works across all your users. And because your users are all connecting to the same exact files in the cloud, there's no need to replicate or download, which means that immediately you're not worrying about version control or any conflict resolution. So that's a whole set of headaches out of the way. We're incredibly fast, and I think that you just showed, Carl just showed how fast we are, how quickly you can get from Frame.io to LucidLink and then access all those files in LucidLink. We work with every creative application you can imagine, the entire Creative Cloud suite from Adobe, as well as any MAMs or DAMs that you're using, really any software that can access files from a drive can read a file from LucidLink. We're scalable, infinitely scalable, because we're mounted in the cloud. So as big as the cloud can go, we're talking not just terabytes, but petabytes and beyond. We scale up and down immediately with the amount of data that you put into the cloud. And we are S3 compatible or Azure Blob. So pretty much any cloud provider that you want to use, we can be mounted in that cloud. And we are globally accessible. And that means that no matter where you are, as long as you have an internet connection, you can access your files, petabytes of files from the cloud, whichever one you want, without downloading a single file. Now, how do we make this work? The LucidLink service is broken down into three components. You have the LucidLink client, which is the lightweight application installed on everyone's workstation. You have your object store in the cloud, as I said, S3 compatible or Azure Blob. And you have your LucidLink service, which is a metadata coordination service. Now, these three components working together are what create the magic that you see of LucidLink. So what happens is, first of all of your reads and writes happen through the LucidLink client. Whether you're writing to the cloud or reading from the cloud, that has to happen through the client because it's coordinating with the metadata that you've written, as well as encrypting and decrypting client side. That means that your files are completely secure, AES 256 encryption at rest and in flight. So your cloud provider and LucidLink, none of us know what your data is. Only you can decrypt it with the keys of your client on your workstation. So how does this actually work? What is different about our protocol? Well, we're using a completely different protocol. It's not last century, how we used to do file transfer. What happens is if I want to put a file in my LucidLink file space, which is what we call our repositories, I can simply click and drag because, again, LucidLink looks like a local file, a local drive attached to my computer. So I click and drag, I bring the file into my file space, and instantly, the first thing that happens is the metadata is stripped off from the data. And that metadata is immediately synced with the cloud. So anyone on my team who has permission, read-only or read-write, who has permission to see that file space directory will see this cloud immediately appear in the file space. The second thing that happens is the data from that file is broken down into tiny little pieces, broken down to a block level, by default, 256 kilobytes in size. So whether you're using a smaller file or even a file that could be 100 gigs or more, that file is broken down into thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of little tiny blocks. And each one of those blocks is taken by the LucidLink client, where it is compressed, encrypted, fed through a local cache, a local LucidLink cache, where it's then flushed out to your cloud storage at the speed of your internet connection. So you're getting an accelerated upload because it's going over parallel streams, by default 64 streams up and down. Those blocks are going up parallel streams, getting an accelerated upload that you'd expect from other services like a Signiant or a Spera. We've created a workflow that shows if you go camera to cloud with Frame.io, you get all of your media into Frame, where then from Frame.io, you transfer it over to LucidLink, as Carl just showed. Now, if you're if you have an instance of LucidLink client in the cloud, you never even need to come down to a local system. You can do all that management and transfer in the cloud, allowing all of your users to have access to that same single source of truth powered by Adobe and Frame.io. This is my file space. Here are all my folders and files. I have access to all these media assets. And if I look at my stock clips, I have tons of media from Adobe stock. I can simply preview by opening up. This is a large file. It is, well, as far as video files go, it's not the largest, but it's 122 megs in size. And normally you would need to wait a minute or so for that to download, even with a decent internet connection. But you can see I can skip around anywhere in this file. This does not live on my computer. This file is in the cloud, and these bears appear on my computer as though they are local. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Carl.
Thank you, David. Now, while David was showing you LucidLink, I've been working away here in Premiere Pro, cutting together this promo using the clip that Michael recorded using Camera to Cloud. So basically, Michael's clip went from the Frame.io cloud over into the LucidLink cloud. It looks like local storage. I can edit with it as if it were local storage, but it's actually coming to us from a cloud instance, which is awesome. Some of the things that we've been doing over here, I've gone ahead and taken a copy of this promo. I've uploaded it into Frame for review and approval. Michael's gone through and actually put a few comments and notes on this. I can go into the show comments field here. I can see Michael's comments, and I've already gone through and downloaded these comments directly to my timeline, so that these comments come in as markers in the timeline, and I can actually read and see those markers. They're time and date stamped directly inside of the Premiere Pro timeline, so I can make the changes that are necessary. And the other thing you'll also notice is that this is version 2 of the promo that's already been uploaded. We've already gone through, in the time we were doing this, we've gone through a review and approval cycle with Michael, and I'm now just about to upload those changes back into Frame.io. I'll go ahead and hit upload active sequence. It's going to go ahead and create that uploaded copy. Now, initially, it looks like it's creating a separate copy of this, but what you're going to see in just a second is one of the features of Frame.io where this is going to be adding a new copy to the stack. And so what you're seeing now is this has now become version 3, and the comments are actually cleaned off so that we can go through a new set of review and approval if necessary, or we can just mark this done and move forward. And with that, I think I'm going to turn things back over to Jeff.
Keycode Media. Daily broadcast post-production. Keeping you ahead on technology.
All right, we're back with our panel. All right, first up, Michael Cioni, Senior Director of Global Innovation at Frame.io, an Adobe company. Michael Cioni was recently recognized as one of Hollywood's most influential people in tech by The Hollywood Reporter. He's a 4-time Emmy winner. As Senior Director of Global Innovation at Frame.io, Cioni leads numerous workflow innovations, including the transformative camera-to-cloud technology. He's an active member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and is an associate member of the American Society of Cinematographers. Michael focuses his efforts on combining aspects of technology and creativity together within the filmmaking community, as well as mentoring and educating throughout the global media industry. Carl Soule. Carl's worked for Adobe as part of the LA-based video team at Adobe, promoting the use of Adobe Creative Cloud video and audio tools, such as Premiere Pro, After Effects, and Adobe Audition. Carl currently focuses on broadcasting, film and television workflows, consulting with editorial and motion graphics teams. Dave Leopold has served as an editor, motion graphic artist, producer, post supervisor, and nearly everything in between in the media and entertainment industry. Over the past 2 decades, he has worked with some of the biggest names in television, most recently at Viacom CBS, now Paramount, where he has created content of all types, including long-form series, short-form digital, concert specials, promo campaigns, and the 2014 documentary feature REM by MTV. In recent years, his focus has shifted to devising and implementing solutions to the challenges of the creative community. In his current role at LucidLink, Dave brings remote collaboration solutions to the global creative community. His ultimate goal is to ensure that creatives are spending their time being creative. All right, let's kick off the questions with this first high-level one. In film and television, post-production departments tend to ramp up a feature film, a new season, or trailers or promotional setups. Folks would start by making decisions on whether they wanted to purchase or rent systems for their team, including shared storage, computers, audio render licenses, for seats of Creative Cloud, and a variety of other gear. Can we as a group break down the reasons why post teams are now looking at choosing a cloud first model for their upcoming work? Michael, let's start with you.
I would say the number one reason for that is distributed teams is only going to become more of a future global structure for all businesses. As global infrastructures continue to get further and further away from each other, pandemic aside, right? We're going to see a need for cloud first infrastructure so that people have the flexibility to interact, even though they are not in the same cities or countries intentionally. And as you see, large corporations have global footprints all over the place. Having a centralized source is actually better for the security of those companies when they are worried, where is my content? How do I get it to the next link in the chain of custody?
David, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I sort of look at one of the early case studies that we did with one of our customers, WebMD, where as the pandemic hit, obviously pandemic accelerated everything as far as moving to the cloud and reimagining what our future workflows could be. But so WebMD, we worked with Zachary Bennett over there, who runs their multimedia studio, and they make medical videos for not only medical professionals, but for general public. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I can't think of a more important time for them to keep their business running. And so I think at first, their adoption of LucidLink, as far as the cloud, was really focusing on business continuity. We have to get these videos out. We can't stop just because the world has. But as they continue, they are every day looking at their workflows and reimagining what directions they can go. Moving things to the cloud is providing them flexibility, not just for where they're sourcing talent, but also when they're going on shoots. They don't need to send editors to conferences to edit on site. So moving things to the cloud is really just enabling all this flexibility as you move forward for what the workflows of the future are going to look like.
There goes my frequent flyer miles. Carl, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I one of the things that I've seen happen as I've been working with, I do presentations for like the Motion Picture Editors Guild on a monthly basis, and it seems like more and more people are looking at the overall cost of living and just the quality of life. It used to be that you had to live in a major entertainment capital like New York or Los Angeles, and I've started seeing top named editors kind of moving around, figuring out where exactly they want to live, going back to their home cities if that's where they want to go. And everybody needs to be prepared for that. As you're looking for top talent, it's no longer about being in a particular geographical region. And I don't think we're ever going back to that.
That makes sense. And I think one of the other discussion points there is that the cost structure is different and the tax structure is different. So people can pop up a production for a lot less than it would cost to go and get a hold of a whole bunch of gear or even rent a bunch of gear, especially when you're talking about a far-flung location away from those entertainment capitals where the equipment tends to live. So talking about the physical gear for a cloud setup, what physical hardware are people still realistically going to have still?
Well, some of what I've seen is you have to kind of make the first decision about whether you want to have the workstations be in remote locations, like have the editor have a workstation at their house or whatever local facility they're going to be working from. Or do you want to keep everything on the cloud? What is the realistic expectation there? And one of the things to think about if you're talking about trying to use some sort of physical workstation, either in your facility or in the cloud, you have to start thinking about the monitoring environments and things like that. That's probably still one of the limitations that some of the solutions out there are still trying to address. And it's why LucidLink is one of the most easy ones to deploy, because you don't have to worry about how big your screen real estate is. You don't have to worry about your audio monitoring environment getting limited. You can have that computer workstation where the editor is, and they can set it up however they want to set it up.
Cool. Any other thoughts on the physical hardware you still have to have?
I would say one of the neat things that people can think about is that we can't use the cloud as a catch-all phrase to describe all forms of cloud interaction. And we often tend to have a bad habit of just saying, I'm using the cloud. So what I really like, I have to be honest, I'll be totally honest. LucidLink was an exceptionally easy way to create what I describe as a SAN in the sky. That's how I describe it. It really behaves like a SAN in the sky. And what I really like about that is help people understand the difference between remote editing, because LucidLink is not remote editing. There are remote editing solutions out there. That's okay. Some people want remote editing, but there can be latency issues or concerns because your actual computer that you're controlling is not your computer. I also find one of the big missteps of remote editing is things like font installations, filter installations, because if you're renting somebody else's machine, it's not necessarily set up for you all the time. But what I really think, people love to get their kits working the way they want. And LucidLink is a great form of just remote storage, not remote editing. So it's cloud storage. And you might say, well, there's a lot of cloud storage solutions out there. What I find about LucidLink is it's optimized for video in a way that things like Dropbox just simply aren't. Dropbox is great for lots of things, but not for editing professional video. So I think, Jeff, one of the things we got to think about is categorizing what cloud means and make sure that when we articulate cloud, we know what version of cloud workflow we're using, as opposed to just assume they're all kind of part of the same thing.
Yeah, getting everyone on the same page as to what the terms are. I mean, it is possible to run an Adobe instance on a cloud workstation running on a cloud compute where you're just using Teradici to control that. That can still be working with LucidLink storage, or I've got my machine fully set up at my home or even at my office, and I'm still pulling the data from Lucid. It's the thing is, I think it's a little beyond the term hybrid. It kind of gets into convertible, because a lot of people also begin saying, well, I kind of want to be in the office a couple days a week, and then I'll be at home another couple days a week, and once in a while I want to sneak off to the beach, and I'm going to cut on the beach out in Malibu, and then they forget that the sun will be shining on their screen. That's a whole other ball of problems. But those convertible and hybrid solutions, and getting everybody on the marching to the same drummer that this is what we are talking about for this production for cloud is the best thing to do in the pre-production part of post, I would say. Speaking of production, so Premiere Pro Productions is coming up on its 2-year anniversary. Those new to Productions, it's the organizational feature inside of Premiere that introduced the projects and project locking workflows that most collaborative team workflows have been using for quite a few years. Carl, can you share a few words for M&E clients that are using Productions today?
Yeah, absolutely. This was something that was actually developed by the team that's based down here in Los Angeles, and it was developed in working with and collaborating with a number of feature film editors. We designed this to be familiar to most people in the industry, so that rather than trying to cram everything into a single Premiere project, you use a containing folder called a production that can contain multiple projects. And it's been super, super successful for us. We've seen a lot of adoption of it. In the first launch of it, the interesting thing about this was developed pre-pandemic in an environment where whenever you said, cloud workflows to a lot of people in the industry that are very risk averse, they would immediately say, no, this has to be completely on premise. And that initial launch, one of the first things we had to do was immediately pivot. And we found this wonderful solution in LucidLink, and that has been the go-to way we've been recommending for people that need to use productions remotely, because again, it behaves like a local NAS. It behaves like shared storage in a facility in a lot of respects, and it just makes it very, very easy to work with.
Awesome. And happy birthday to Productions.
Thank you.
So you talked about Hollywood and a lot of folks being risk averse. So that always leads to that next discussion. The elephant that tends to be in the room a lot is security. So how has security improved around cloud-centric workflows, with Productions and Lucid and Frame, and possibly even other cloud products? Carl, let's start with you, and then we'll bounce to Dave and Michael.
One of the things I just like to point back to, there were still a lot of places in town that were still relying on tape back before the tsunami hit, before there was that huge shortage in the industry. So as a risk-averse community and industry, it tends to take something external to force a shift in beliefs. And there was this thought that, you're always hearing about this site gets hacked, that site gets hacked. Now you look at the technology, you look at the way security audits can be passed with a lot of these technologies relatively quickly. We've seen a number of productions from companies like Netflix spin up on LucidLink very, very quickly, pass security audits very, very quickly. People are finally starting to realize that, sending a drive through the mail or through a courier service isn't really that secure anyway. And, relying on, encrypted files and streaming type technology and other ways of getting that data across to various people is actually a more secure solution.
David?
Yeah. Again, back at the beginning of the pandemic, I think Carl makes a great point about the tsunami and just sort of the forced change that had to happen. I see a similar thing at the beginning of this pandemic, as people were sent home from their offices, but had to keep business running, had to keep productions going, couldn't stop. And, the first thing that happened that I saw was security was, I would say, sacrificed. It was acknowledged that everyone still needs security, but in order to get the footage, to keep business going, to the editors, there is something had to give, and security was the first thing that sort of took the hit. So you saw a lot of people using Dropbox or sending drives, and security is something that we really feel is incredibly important at LucidLink, and we really try and focus on what we're doing with security. So something that's so different about our protocol and the way that we work is because you're breaking a file down into tiny little pieces that basically get scrambled in cloud storage, and you don't know what piece goes with what file. Each one of those pieces are also individually encrypted. And so that's what has enabled us to not only get through security reviews so quickly at these companies, but we can ensure everyone that their data is completely 100% secure. No one else, aside from their organization, can see anything. And that's actually how one of our first customers, which was a government agency with a very high premium on security, we got through their security review very quickly, because we know that it is incredibly important. IP in this industry is the most valuable thing. And so we really put that at a premium and make sure that we're handling everyone's data with the utmost care and security in mind.
Michael, any thoughts there on security?
Yeah, I do want to give a quick little NAB preview to this group that Frame.io will be announcing for our enterprise customers. You'll have two-factor authentication and DRM. And if you're not familiar, digital rights management basically means when you take a screen grab of your laptop or your iPad with Frame.io on it, it blocks out the image. You can't take screen grabs of your own assets. And so that's additional new layers of security that we're offering for Frame.io enterprise customers. But I want to just shift this one interesting direction when it comes to security. I just want everybody to think about this. There are certainly edge cases, but generally speaking, when you do research on security breaches, the overwhelming majority of security leaks come from people who were supposed to have access to the material in the first place. What's funny is we sometimes think of security now, David, in the military attributes and government agencies, that would certainly be a different situation. But most people on this call and most people that KeyCode works with are media and entertainment professionals, not doing government contracts. So what we consider secure is on a different level. And what I find is very ironic is we sort of get the impression that there are these packet sniffers all over the world trying to steal your dailies. Turns out that's not really the case. And most of the time it's either an accident or a bad actor who was given permission to have assets, makes a dumb decision, gives it to a roommate or a friend, accidentally leaves it somewhere, that kind of thing. And so it's important when we think about security is not to be too draconian about it, because if you were to be shooting on film or videotape not too long ago, or hard drives today, people use FedEx as the most common way to move their assets. And that means you have very weak security in that chain of custody. The cloud is infinitely more secure than a FedEx Pelican case. Infinitely more secure. It's just new and maybe it's unfamiliar. But when you think about stealing a Pelican case and just having a LaCie or GTech drive in there, which is how greater than 90% of people move their assets, there's no contest to the lack of security there. And we accept shipping drives. We accept shipping film in FedEx over borders. And we just put a do not X-ray sticker on it, right? Like that's not very secure. So I think it's important that we just think about what security means and how we can ensure that the people we hire and the training that you give your staff on how important it is to be secure is going to go further in protecting your assets than living in a Faraday cage. I don't think that's going to solve the problem.
And the other thing there is most of us, I mean, I don't think I have worked in an environment where I've dealt with a physical email server since at least 2017. It's all been in the cloud after that, and there's been no complaint. So the folks that do complain about, worried about cloud security, they're doing it on email that is in the cloud. So a lot of times people just need to sit down and think about where things truly are, and like Michael was saying, where the breaches really happen. Let's
just go ahead. One other thing, just piggybacking on what Michael was saying, he's absolutely right that's how the majority of the security breaches happen. But one thing that people are thinking about a lot too these days, especially when it comes to larger broadcasters and studios, are things like ransomware attacks. And so that's one of the things that we look at very, very seriously at LucidLink as well. And so in addition to all the encryption, we also have a series of immutable snapshots for backups that can be restored instantly. So this basically makes you impervious to any ransomware attacks or malicious attacks as well. So, we're not just looking at leaks, but also how can people destroy your data as well.
So Adobe, Frame, and Lucid have some of the most powerful tools when it comes to cloud workflows. Adobe, it's the creative cloud software itself. Frame.io solves the cloud management and the camera to cloud and the whole review and approval of assets. And LucidLink puts the shared experience into the cloud. What do you folks see as some of the other cloud-based products that post-production teams are using to achieve other important parts of their process? Michael, let's kick that off with you.
Yeah, so I think you're making an interesting question. And I would say, what are some of the things that we don't cover in the stuff that we did cover today? And the answer is file syncing. File syncing is really hard to do, where you have multiple people, and if one person uploads or downloads an asset, it automatically propagates that through all the other users. Frame.io doesn't do that. Adobe doesn't have a solution for that, and LucidLink doesn't automatically. If you're using LucidLink, you might not need to do that as much, but a tool like Dropbox actually has a very powerful file syncing system, and it's aware of what everybody's doing to it. And that is a unique attribute that we still need. I find Dropbox is a great resource for documents, and when you're doing production and pre-production databases and things like that. At Frame.io, in our production department, we use Google tools like crazy. Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Docs. That is really, really powerful stuff. And it seems pretty trivial and maybe obvious, like, yes, use a Google Doc. But I got to be honest, 5 years ago, most of us still used local Microsoft Words. We attached documents, we printed out PDFs. That wasn't that long ago. And now that seems totally archaic to like attach a PDF. And when I get a PDF from someone, I'm so upset and frustrated, and I can't believe, like, what's their problem, right? Like, I don't want to download this. I don't need this asset. I just want to look at it and close the browser page. And it's funny how fast I feel most people have moved to cloud documentation. And I think those are some of the tools that in the future, you'll see more of those types of behaviors making their way into actual post-production NLE tools.
Yeah, we're using Google Docs for the questions for this. So they come in, they get put there, I look at them, and here we are. David, Carl, any last thoughts on other tools that are cool?
Sure. I see, virtual machines, whether it's EC2 instances or any way that you can give access to your end users to something better than what they have right in front of them. That's really what it comes down to. And you might not need it in every case, but again, back to that word, flexibility. It gives the flexibility of if I'm working in After Effects or Premiere, and I'm just doing my routine work, I'm doing some edits, but then I have a really heavy render, or I have really large files that require a bigger pipe as far as my networking speeds, or more a better GPU. That's where you can really enlist the help of these virtual machines. And if you have all of your data and files, assets centralized in cloud storage, where you can access it from anywhere and any machine can access it from anywhere, then you're really tapping into the synergistic aspects of all these tools working together.
I would probably add the other thing that I've been seeing is people craving that over-the-shoulder experience. I think in a lot of cases, this is kind of more temporary, because I think one area we are going to see people going back to on-premise is to have that experience in the edit bay with the couch and the hero display for review and or for final reviews, and that collaborative experience on site. But I have lately seen people adopting the NDI technology, which came from New Tech, is now part of VizRT. They just recently released something called NDI Bridge, which makes it less of an in-facility type solution for getting live video and the user interface experience going out to multiple sites. So I've seen that as something that people are starting to look at and adopt.
And the other thing is Keycode's New Tech's largest dealer in the United States, I believe. So that's if you want to talk NDI, please give us a holler. But one important question that we had, and actually Justin has hit the nail on the head here with the question, one of the challenges we've run into with any cloud workflows is understanding and managing bandwidth needs and expectations. David, you want to take lead on that one?
Sure. So I'll start by saying every case is going to be a little bit different, especially as you look at home users and the great range of what they may have in their home. We always say it's always best to hardwire as opposed to use Wi-Fi, just to get a better running start for these things. But in the end, when it comes to LucidLink, you're not sending pixels, you're sending data itself. And we have these accelerated ways to seamlessly move that data around without you even realizing it's happening. But the way that we break it down is basically, it's still going to be physics. There's still going to be math involved. So we look at the bit rate of your video, how many streams do you have, and then calculate that against the bandwidth that you have available in each user case. But we found that you can operate really well on fairly low bandwidth. We like to say probably around 40 to 50 megs down. You can do a full craft edit without a problem. We're going to actually be demoing some of this stuff at NAB coming up, and NAB's internet connections there are notoriously, I'll say, challenging. So yeah, the point is we like to give you confidence in your speeds. There may be some fine tuning that has to happen, whether it's proxy workflows or figuring out when you need high res versus proxies. But that's certainly been a challenge, and we've been working with our customers everywhere to make sure that they're confident in their networking speeds and needs as well.
Cool. Michael, you had uploaded content just before on a hotel Wi-Fi. What do you see as camera to cloud's needs for bandwidth?
So I'm constantly testing the bandwidth infrastructures. Camera to cloud is designed to work with LTE. And so I had a modem in the room here, which had 4 SIM cards in it. And now we're seeing more companies build modems that are, I would call them industrial level modems. You know, there's stuff you can get at the AT&T store in the mall, but there's also professional stuff. There's a company called Pepwave that makes modems traditionally for like industrial, they do like buses and ambulances and fire trucks. Those people need to be on the internet all the time. And instead of using satellite feeds, which are more expensive today, they just use LTE. And they're really cool. We use the PepLink Max Transit Duo is the one that we use a lot of. It's pretty well priced. You put 4 SIMs in it, and you can have 4 carriers, you know, AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, T-Mobile. And wherever you go, you're going to get 2 or 3 of those towers, and you're always online. And, you know, I tell people, if you can make a phone call, you could shoot camera to cloud, and 5G and low orbit satellites is only going to make that better in the near future.
Very cool. So I'm going to merge 2 questions here. Dennis was asking, early on, you mentioned doing color grading and also relinking. How do people who need the original full res files get those assets? And then Benjamin had asked, yes, definitely wondering how the raw files come into play.
So what's cool about camera to cloud in this regard is the proxies that we get today from the Teradek Cube are the same file name and time code as the original raw files because it's connected to the source camera. Frame.io is really open to any file type format. You can put anything in it, and you can put a single asset of up to 500 gigabytes. That is the limit of S3, actually. A single block for one file is 500 gigs. You could upload 5 terabytes of many files if you wanted to, but one asset. So you can put these huge assets in Frame.io, and then you have your tiny little camera to cloud proxies. And then in products like Premiere, you just do a simple relink. It's onlining or relinking, just like we did an online in the past, or sometimes people call it an upres. This is the same principle. Normally, you take your raw files and you generate dailies and relink back. What we're doing is what we call proxy first workflow, where you're getting the proxy before the raw, but when it has the same file name and time code, it works. And I can tell you this works because we actually have crossed about 1,800 or 1,900 productions. We're at 250,000 assets. And in our support team at Frame.io, relinking problems are actually pretty small on the list. People are able to relink and follow the instructions based on how NLEs work. So you're really just, you can work with raw files and you can work with proxies, and you can decide at what point it's convenient for you to switch from one to the other.
And from a LucidLink perspective as well, once you have those files over in your LucidLink file space, you can, again, if you have proxies, you can make the choice between the two. There's no relinking or repathing necessary. Everything is in that single source of truth, and anyone connecting to that file space is going to have the same path to those files. Now, as far as high-res originals, the raw data, the raw files, all of those are equally usable by LucidLink. We don't force you into any proxy workflows. You can, when it comes to visual effects or color or anything where you really need that camera master or high res, you just access that file as though you would from any attached storage.
Awesome. So we got one last questions before we get into the rapid fire round. I think Studios is asking, how about best practices for managing online selects versus offline raw takes in the cloud for longer term library-based productions, given the extraordinary ongoing cloud storage costs?
Oh, I love that. It's really forward thinking and really great. What you're asking for is a cloud media asset manager, just an asset manager, just an AM. And what I can tell you is just stay tuned in 2023 because we'll show some incredible stuff. But if you remember watching earlier today, when I showed the directories that were empty and then populated, hopefully you can start to get the sense that the idea is today, centralize all the assets together. And then where we're going a year from now is how to synthesize results from all those so that the centralization can create a sum greater than its parts. And if you think about it, scene and take might come from one database. The camera doesn't know scene and take. It might come from script or it might come from audio. Time code comes from the camera. Time code comes from audio. And the names of the characters comes from the script. And the magazine that it's on comes from a product like Zoilog. And so the point is, all of these have partial points of the data, but they're all incomplete. And how do we try to get that complete whole where you can do circle takes, playlists, as he was saying in the question? You got to centralize it all first. That's the first step. And that's what we're doing now. Then we'll be able to parse it, mux it, and extrapolate there and plot it into custom fields. But the custom fields are useless if you don't have the data, right? I could build, there's MAMs out there that have lots of fields. Well, who's going to manually import all that stuff? How do you do it? We want automation. And the first way, our decision, what we strategically decided to do, we'll see if it was correct, is to go with centralizing the assets first. And even if they're dumb or unintelligent right now, once they're all there, then you add the intelligence and you don't have to go searching and hunting for all the assets that have the answers. We decided to go centralization first, get the program out there for companies, and then we'll centralize, then we'll synthesize. You'll be able to synthesize that data later because you'll have it.
And I think once you've got the synthesization of that data, you can decide what level of importance it is right now, because there is multiple tiers of storage in the cloud. It doesn't have to be sitting there in the fastest speed bucket. If I've got data that I'm going to put on hiatus for a while, I just drop it down to a much lower cost tier. And then I can bring that back later, and that's just managing my assets correctly. We do the same thing on-prem. We move from really high-speed SSD storage to slower speed spinning disk, and then possibly out to tape, and then back and forth. We're just talking about doing it in the cloud, and that's really an easier method where you just say, go get this stuff, put it here, and you come back a little while later, and hey, there's my stuff there. David, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm completely on board with that. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think you hit the nail on the head.
I did have one quick thing to add, and this is one of the reasons why, us at Adobe are so excited to have Frame as part of the family now. This is an area that's been there's a lot of research that's going on in this area right now. And if you're familiar with the Adobe Sensei brand for machine learning technology and some of the stuff that's going on with like image recognition through Adobe Stock and things like that. There's a lot of discussion about how, as Michael said, you don't want to have a team of people manually entering in metadata. You need to have something to take care of that for you. We've had all the tools to put that metadata in, and there's only a small fraction of people who actually use it. So that's an area that we want to, target machine learning at, where we can get in there, we can make all these assets richer, more searchable, be able to find what you're looking for. And you've seen some of this with like the speech to text technology. I don't think I called it out during the demo, but one of the things that I did with Michael's clip was I ran that little promo I was working on through the speech to text that's built into Premiere now, to get open captions right on the screen. And, so being able to further analyze that and maybe, take a phrase like, I'm here with Michael today, and suddenly it tags that shot as a 2-shot, or, those types of things are what our researchers are currently looking at in the lab.
And I think one of the other things also people need to understand up front is figure out what taxonomy you want to be fed into the AI, what things are of importance to you that will help you in, automating and speeding up your media and entertainment workflows. And then that's the stuff you need to talk to, the smart folks on this call about. These are the features we want. And that's the whole point of, we iterate products to make them better and more effective for you. And then our final question, I'll try to hit on this. CCFE is asking, describe the return on investment by incurring these type of new SaaS costs and egress fees. And it's actually the math equation where, okay, if I spend $100,000 on gear that will do this project for me, and then I can amortize that off of my taxes out of the next 3 to 5 years, depending upon my schedule there, that's how I recoup those original costs. But anything that's cloud, so if I'm spending, $20,000 to do this particular project now, that's all operating expenses. It's not capital expenditures. And that goes into my taxes differently. I can actually see the benefits of that or take that off of my bottom line profit at the end of the year in terms of my taxes. It's cost of doing business for the year. And with that, we've run out of questions. So, David, Michael, Carl, thanks for joining us today. If anyone out there has questions about Frame, Adobe, or LucidLink, please reach out to us and we can help you out with those here at KeyCode Media. And if you want to find out about those NDI workflows that are mentioned, we can talk about that. So thanks for everyone for joining us today. Great to have you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Broadcast to Post. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes. Follow KeyCode Media on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram to receive news on additional AV, broadcast, and post-production technology content. See you next time, folks.